Greetings and welcome to part 2 of our review of the book The Courteous Rebel, and we are at page 17 of the book and the chapter on balance and discipline. Jesus was a very disciplined man who gave tremendously to his community while maintaining balance through periods of rejuvenating solitude. Jesus led a very demanding life. People flocked to him wherever he went. Yet even when in the midst of multitudes of people, Jesus managed to get away, to find solitude, to pray and eat. Jesus knew the importance of rejuvenation to help him serve others and maintain balance in his life through prayer, self-development, spending time with his disciples and giving to his community. Covey notes that organisational effectiveness requires development in all 4 dimensions: physical, spiritual, mental and social, emotional, in a wise and balanced way. That Covey would be probably Stephen Covey, a self-help guru. There are many examples in the scriptures where Jesus' discipline in praying and seeking solitude for rejuvenation is illustrated. Below. Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. Mark 1:35. They all ate and were satisfied. Immediately Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to Bethsaida while he dismissed the crowd. After leaving them, he went up on a mountainside to pray. Mark 6:42 and 45:46. Jesus went out as usual to the Mount of Olives and his disciples followed him. On reaching the place, he said to them, "Pray that you will not fall into temptation." He withdrew about a stone's throw beyond them, knelt down and prayed. Luke 22:39-41. That day, when evening came, he said to his disciples, "Let us go over to the other side," leaving the crowd behind. They took him along just as he was. Mark 4:35-36. As the scriptures demonstrate, Jesus took time for solitude and restoration, but he also remained flexible in responding to the needs of his followers. In Mark 6:31-36, Jesus tried to retreat from the crowd so that his team could get a chance to eat and get some rest. As the team tried to leave by boat, many people ran ahead of them. But Jesus had compassion for these people, and even though it was late in the day, he resumed his teaching and then provided food for 5,000 of them. Mark 6:37-44. Jesus also knew when to send the crowd away, as in Mark 8:9-10. After he had fed about 4,000 men, he sent them away, got into the boat with his disciples, and left for the region of Dalmanutha. Self-discipline is a characteristic that was evident in Jesus' life. Jesus knew his purpose and used self-discipline in many areas of his life to prioritize the demands that were placed upon him by God and by men. Matthew 6:33. It is noted many times in the scriptures that Jesus sought solitude to pray when he was very tired in the evening, and sometimes before it was even daybreak. Matthew 14:23, Mark 1:35, Luke 22:39-41. Covey advocates coherence, which is the harmony, unity and integrity between your vision and mission, your roles and goals, your priorities and plans, and your desires and discipline. Jesus certainly had the harmony, which Covey describes that was congruent between his mission and his self-discipline. It could be some other Covey, might not be that Stephen Covey, self-help guru, but we're pretty sure it's Stephen Covey. Balance and discipline. Here's some questions to ask yourself. Get a pen, write it down, put your answers, then put your answers underneath. Try to be as honest as you can. How do you know when it's time to act versus when it's time to reflect? Or look back on something, right? Or ponder something. Go back in your mind to a time, right? What percentage of your time is spent in reflection compared to action? Is that balance working for you? What does the word discipline mean to you? What's the origin of the word disciple? How can you create solitude despite the hectic and harried pace of life today? What will happen if you don't? If you can't say no, your yes will never mean anything. Do you ever accept responsibilities and say yes when you should say no? And why? Humility. Undeniably, Jesus was a confident leader. It is noted that when Jesus went to Capernaum to teach in the synagogue, that people were amazed at his teaching, because he taught them as one who had authority, not as a teacher of the law. Mark 1:22. So perhaps you lack his kind of authority there, or his kind of style there, where you're just going, you must wear tassels, you must do this, you must hop on one leg, you must wash the dishes like this, because that's what they used to do in the old days, in the Old Testament. Part of the brilliance of Jesus' leadership was that he was completely confident and completely humble concurrently. Jesus proclaimed, "Therefore, whoever humbles himself like this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven." Matthew 18:4. So, concurrently he was doing it all the time. In Luke 18:14, he said, "For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled." He says, "Oh yeah, I'm this, I'm that, I've got a big ego, and I'm this, I'm the man," this is stuff. Yeah, he'll be humbled. And he who humbles himself will be exalted. He'll be held in high appraisal by probably God and Christ, right? And others around him. They'll say, "Well, that's a truly honest, charitable man, etc., etc., right? He's the real deal." And we'll get around it probably. In fact, he often expressed his opposition to self-exaltation and self-aggrandizement. "Yeah, I'm all that. Yeah, we're the chosen. We're the originals. We're this, we're that. You're nothing. You're this, you're that." Yeah, that sort of stuff. Jesus spoke out against those who made a show of lengthy prayers in public places and who schemed against widows. What about those people who stand on the street and go, "Moses said, the Bible said," all that sort of thing. They like to shout to be heard, right? Or they say these fancy names of God that are not in the Hebrew, probably to be heard, right? To be looked at as, "Oh, he's knowledgeable." Jesus spoke out against those who made a show of lengthy prayers in public places and who schemed against widows. Yeah, there's quite a few denominations, churches, etc. that are supposed to be doing that, right? To this very day. Oh, they're vulnerable. Yeah, so that's the whole idea. Get in there and, evangelize them, proselyte them, preach to them, to get them on your side, get them to your church, put bums on seats and put money in, right? They're so gullible, vulnerable. Okay? Claiming that they would be severely punished, okay? Luke 20:47. Regarding that, the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, Jesus observed that everything they do is done for men to see. Okay? So like blew trumpets when they were walking along, so everybody would know that they were coming. Sat in the best seats in the feasts, or, meals, all that sort of stuff, and so forth, so forth. They had all these fancy clothes on, probably bright ass sort of thing, silky and whatever. So everybody would say, "Oh, look, here comes a rabbi. Ooh, look what he's wearing." Attention seekers. Everything they do is done for men to see. They make their phylacteries wide and the tassels on their garments long. They love the place of honour at banquets and the most important seats in the synagogues. They love to be greeted in the marketplaces and to have men call them rabbi. Matthew 23:5-7. Jesus points out the lack of humility in this type of behaviour. Remember that parable, that story of the man who was praying, out in the public there, and he's going, "Oh, thank God, I'm not like this guy. Thank you, God, I'm not like this guy over here. Whoever he was, peasant, whatever, He wasn't actually a peasant, but he's that sort of attitude, right? Yeah, I'm glad I'm not like this man. I give so much and so much and so much. I do the Sabbaths and all that." Another guy was like in tears saying, "God, I'm a sinner, I've done this and I've done that. Forgive me, And who did God favour more, or look at more, The guy who was humble and said, "Yeah, I'm a sinner and I'm undeserving, blah, blah, blah," all that sort of stuff, right? Rather than this other guy that's going, "Yeah, I'm the man, I give all of this, I get 10th of my tithes or something. I give this, I give that. Oh, I do this every, I keep the Sabbaths. I'm glad I'm not like this fella over here." That sort of thing. Jesus points out the lack of humility in this type of behavior. A humble leader does not seek outward recognition. Rather, a humble leader engages in his or her spiritual acts in private. Humility requires truthfulness, and Jesus' perfect example of humility was sincere, not self-deprecating or belittling. It's like, well, you know, like we saw a guy in a church that supposedly, he was the leader of a Christian men's hostel, right, where we were at the time, and apparently it's pointed out to us. This island lady put in so much. It is a challenge, right? Like the business people say, if someone puts 100 and the other business guy down the other, he's got to put 200 or 150 or whatever to match it, right? That's the little game they're playing. And she just put in $20 or whatever. He's looking at her like, yeah, you could put more in, you know. That's, yeah, someone else pointed it out. It's like, hey? Yeah. That kind of thing. Yeah, humility requires truthfulness, and Jesus' perfect example, humility was sincere, not self-deprecating or belittling. On many occasions, Matthew 19:19, Mark 12:31-33, Luke 10:27, Jesus taught the disciples as well as the Pharisees to love your neighbour as yourself, not love thy neighbour, hate thyself. Yeah. So you should be like, friendly to your neighbours, have respect for your neighbours, love them as human beings, have God's love for them, project it to them, all that sort of stuff. If someone's giving them a hard time or trespassing on their property, make them aware, help them out if there's a shouting match sort of thing, maybe, from a distance, you don't get knocked by the other party, right? Who the hell are you, bong? You're missing all your teeth. Just when they're there, that, they need you, or just be eyes and ears of what went down. So if the cops come, well, you can say, no, that's not according to what this guy did. This guy here, shouting and carrying on, right? It's not what he said. It's not what he did. Maybe you're there with your mobile phone taking a video. Okay. A healthy self-perception can reveal true humility. An example of this occurred after Jesus' baptism. While Peter was still speaking, a bright cloud enveloped him, and a voice from the cloud said, "This is my son, whom I love, with him I am well pleased. Listen to him." Matthew 17:5. This event terrified the disciples. So there's obviously witnesses besides John the Baptist that actually saw it, right? With these people that were prior to becoming his disciples, right? Or maybe he got them and they were there with him or something. Okay, this event terrified the disciples, causing them to fall face down on the ground. Okay, so this is saying that when he walked through the crowds and he went to get baptized, they were there, his disciples. Hang on. A healthy self-perception can reveal true humility. An example of this occurred after Jesus' baptism. Okay, while Peter was still speaking, a bright cloud enveloped him, and a voice from the cloud said, "This is my son, whom I love, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." Matthew 17:5. Something's not right there. It's like they've taken one bit and mixed it with another bit. A letter thing, Had to check out Matthew 17:5. Let's see if it says that, because this does not seem right. Okay, I'm just going to grab the nearest version we have in front of us, which happens to be the New Italian version. Okay, what are we looking at? Matthew 17:5. Yeah, they seem to have twisted it. It added one bit to it from another bit, a latter bit. 17:5. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. This is kind of weird. Hang on. It says here, while he was still speaking, a bright cloud enveloped them. Oh, okay. Okay. Hang on. After Jesus' baptism. Hang on, we're going to go 17:5, right? 17:5. In the New Irish version. Hang on. While he was still speaking, okay, Peter said to Jesus, "Lord, it is good for us to be here." Hang on, we'll go number 1. After 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter, James and John, the brother of James, and lead them up a high mountain by themselves. There he transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became as white as the light. Just then there appeared before them Moses and Elijah talking with Jesus. Peter said to Jesus, Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you wish, I'll put up 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses and Elijah. While he was still speaking, a bright cloud enveloped him, and a voice from the cloud said, This is my son whom I love. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him. Yeah, okay. So this part here is correct. But what's this part here after Jesus' baptism? That doesn't seem fitting to that sentence. Yeah, so they made a mistake there, but it looks at it. Okay, this event terrified the disciples, causing them to fall face down on the ground. But Jesus received this beautiful affirmation from his Father and knowing his true nature and identity. Okay, so he repeated what he said at his baptism, right? He also showed he was truly humble and cared for his disciples, for he came over and touched him, saying, Get up, don't be afraid. 17:7. Yeah, don't be afraid. When they looked up, they saw no one except Jesus. So we're going to have a look at the Aramaic New Testament, or the Aramaic Disciples New Testament, at Matthew 17 to compare that. Okay. Matthew, not Mark, right? You wonder why there was a chapter missing. 17:5. Okay, we're going to go from 1. And 6 days after Yeshua, or Jesus, took Keeper, or Peter, and James and his brother John up a high mountain by themselves, and he became transfigured before them. His body transformed, right? To a better, holier body. Yeah? And his visage, or his likeness, his face, right? Visage means face, radiated like the sun, and his clothes turned white like an aura. Okay? So it became all pure, etc. So he had this completely different body. So these people that say, oh, Jesus was black and all this, and Revelations, and yeah, he's black, there's the proof there, they're all wrong. Okay? Because whatever he looked like in his physical form, that's what he looked like. But when he got this transfiguration, this transformating body, he looked very different, right? There it is there, like in Revelations. His face radiates like the sun. Okay? And his clothes turn white like an aura. Okay? White as water, right? And there appeared to them Moses and Elijah while talking with him. And Peter responded, saying to Yeshua, or Jesus, My Lord, it would be wonderful if we could just stay here. And if you like, I will make us 3 tents, one for you, and one for Moses, one for Elijah. And while he was speaking, behold, a bright cloud cast a shadow over them. And behold, or look, listen, pay attention. Note, a voice from the cloud saying, This is my beloved Son, by whom I am fulfilled. To him you shall listen. Okay, the other verse in John probably says, through him I am well pleased. Okay? And as his disciples heard, they fell upon their faces and were very frightened. And Yeshua, or Jesus, drew near to them and touched them, saying, Get up, do not be afraid. And they raised their eyes and saw no one, except for Yeshua, or Jesus, by himself, because Moses and Elijah had disappeared, right? By the sounds of it. Okay, so let's have a look at footnotes there. Okay, 8 and 9. It doesn't have any here. Here's footnote indications. Oh, it's 17:8. Literal Aramaic idiomatic expression, no human being. Here we look at it, right? Yeah, they didn't see anybody. And then 9, basically the same thing. An literal Aramaic idiomatic expression, no human being. Okay, so don't tell anybody. So don't tell any human being, right? Of what went on, what you saw. Leadership literature on the topics of courage and confidence are readily available. Other than literature which specifically focuses on the leadership of Jesus, the concept of humility in leadership is rarely addressed. Once in a while, one may find humility, mentioned as an attribute that a leader wishes to acquire. Stadat challenges leaders in the postmodern world to be humble in their leadership. He posits that humility does not imply lowered aspirations. On the contrary, leaders are challenged to see the agenda as a moral agenda, calling forth the best that is in us to reverse the tragedies of the century. Just as Stadat notes that humility does not imply a lowered standard, many still have difficulty comprehending how one can fully embody self-confidence and humility at the same time. Jesus was a master at being both self-confident and humble, yet he did not seek to be exalted or praised, held in high esteem, put on a pedestal. Jesus was not impressed with people who made a show of the exaggerated religiosity. Oh yeah, I'm a Christian. Yeah, I am. That's great. Okay, we have to. I was going to go buy me a packet of smokes. They come back with a packet of smokes. Yeah, or a bottle of gin and a packet of smokes. Jesus was not impressed with people who made a show of their exaggerated religiosity, or the Pharisees, right? People like that. Luke 20:46-47. In direct contrast to the self-important and publicly pious religious leaders of the day, Jesus preached that it is those who humble themselves that will be exalted, will be appraised, right? Luke 18:14. As was, or highly regarded, as was true of himself, he was concerned with a person's internal condition, not the external so much.